and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Well, hello one and hello all to another edition of Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. How are you? And welcome back. I must say, for anybody that's going on to listen to this right now, thank you for tuning in, because I did take a little bit of a hiatus coming across Father's Day. You know, this is about a week or so after Father's Day weekend of 2025. And I just took a little bit of a break so I could enjoy the fruits of my labors as a father for my children, and take a little just time to sit around and do nothing. I mean, that's pretty much the answer that I have for not cranking out a show. But, you know, the WoW continues to do what it does, and I was certainly going to get back to it, and I absolutely watched, because even though it was a relaxing weekend for me, I was like, you know, I'm going to set my Tableau, and I'm going to make sure that I record this so that I can view it at some point in time, and I did. And full disclosure for those that are listening here, as I'm recording this now, I didn't watch them both in the same weekend. I watched them the weekends that they aired. However, as I'm recording, talking about the first of the episodes that I have to talk about, I also saw the episode that followed it. So I know where, as I'm doing this review, I'm just, like, again, full disclosure, I know where some of that stuff was going at the time of this recording. It does not change, however, my opinions about it. Surprisingly, this particular episode that I'm speaking of today, I thought the good outweighed the bad. I know I don't get the chance to say that often, but in this particular episode, I thought the good outweighed the bad. Shockingly. Now, that has nothing to do with what followed it, nor does it have anything to do with the incremental things that happened within the episode that I disagreed with. But it's one of those cases of when they have a wrestling heavy episode and they lean back on the storyline, the good generally tends to outweigh the bad, because in the ring, when they have competent performers, it's hard for them to screw it up. But we'll get there. We will get there. There's plenty of time for that. And just fair warning for anybody that listens to this on a regular basis, by the time you get to the next episode, my opinions are definitely going to change. They will be an entirely different field of viewpoint by that time. But let us talk about this particular episode, Rookies, Rivals, and Royalty. But, you know, before I do that, let's keep things in order here. Let's go into the news, views, and updates. And within that this time, I have something that I want to read, because Mr. Stephen Dickey, who is floating around on Reddit somewhere, was pretty kind to respond. Well, he's pretty open about responding to just people in general. And I want to read a response that he has. So we're going to include that within this segment. So let's get over to it. News, views, and updates, folks. All right. So in order to do this, we have to start with the obvious. First thing being is that, as you may or may not know, WoW has released a card game. I mentioned before that I don't have any real connection to playing card games overall. And I believe I said this in one of the other podcasts when one of my buddies had a comic book shop in the area. It would have been, I wish he still had it, but unfortunately the pandemic kind of did him in. But he had people who played those games on a regular basis. A lot of that was the lifeblood of that comic book shop. I mean, yes, he sold comics, but them coming to more or less, I'm probably not using the proper term, but you'll get the point, rent the tables and rent the building for his use to play these games amongst 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 plus people. That is where he got a lot of, I guess his pay, because he was doing that on a weekly basis. But because they were into it and I wasn't, and I wish I had sat through it at this point now, but I never sat through it for me to really understand it. So I can't justifiably say what is a good version of a card game or not. So just take that with a grain of salt. We know that WoW has released their first collectible card game. The, I guess, first real issue is that it seems like it is very, very behind on its time. Just looking at the box alone, Tormenta, who we've just seen on, I guess, WWE programming with their Worlds Collide event, without the mask, mind you. Abilene Maverick, who is not even wrestling on WoW's TV, she's more of a manager. The Beast, who is not their champion, nor is she wrestling on their program. Americana, who is more MIA, I guess. That's maybe the best way to say it. And then there's Princess Aussie, who's the only one of the 4 who is actively wrestling as of the release of that card game. So it does make it come off as a little bit behind the times. And to Zantara, who left the comment, can't wait to hear you talk about the Maestro and Miss New Hire, how we played this on our lunch break. I am sorry to relay to you that is probably never going to happen. I know it's not proper form in the wrestling industry to say what you will never do, but in this particular instance, I'm going to say that there's a fair chance that 99% that we will not be doing that, because certainly they're not going to buy it, and I have no intentions of buying that game. The only way that I intend on ever playing the WoW card game is if that WoW card game is gifted to me. And even then, that might be a push. I mean, quite honestly. So, save your money. So this should be a note to the company. If the company sends me a game and they're like, hey, can you review this? Then maybe. But that's the only circumstances that I can see where I would ever decide to do that. However, what I wanted to get to was a conversation or at least communication in the Reddit post. And it was Stephen Dickey, and I posted a question. And if somebody is looking for it, is the name that I use is Gotta Pick Some Name 5412. That was me. And my question to him was, given what you know about the WoW audience and how WoW pushes their merch, how well do you expect it to sell in your honest opinion? And I wasn't asking that to try to get him to say something rude or mean towards WoW, like, they won't sell a dime or whatever the case may be. I honestly wanted to know what his genuine opinions were about how well this will or will not sell. And I thought he gave a great answer. And I'm going to read that answer to you right now. So bear with me for a moment. His response, Stephen Dickey, came like this. Great question. I must qualify my answer by stressing that I do not have a background in marketing or licensing or anything like that whatsoever. In my opinion, I don't see it doing very well. Cards are huge collector's items. I won't argue that. However, during the 10 plus years I was with the WoW, I heard so many things in the pipeline in regards to licensing the brand for different ventures. The problem is not with the items themselves. As I said, many people buy and collect cards. The problem is with the WoW itself. David's tried for years to partner with people to help make the company, help make sure the company is ahead of the curve. We worked with a company called The First Movement in the early 2010s to help make WoW more digital. While a lot was learned, the relationship with WoW and T1M dissolved almost as quickly as it was formed. There were social media managers brought on. There were different writers brought in for television. There were people in Access TV that were supposed to help take us to the next level. There were people in CBS that was supposed to help kick things up a notch. There were different editors brought in, different people behind the scenes, a revolving door of people that were going to help change things and make WoW different. However, for that reason, these people and these relationships disintegrated fast. Let me rewind here a second. However, for whatever reason is what I meant to say. But I will now continue. To me, this seems like another person or entity bought on to help distinguish WoW from the competition. If David and company can maintain this relationship and help cultivate it to its full potential, then this could be successful. However, the problem has always been David having too much on his plate. If this has been delegated to someone that can properly focus on this and see it through, then it has the ability to succeed and grow. If this is just another thing on David's plate, though, then it will die on the vine. The minute David has a problem with the talent or a fire that he feels only he can put out, then this will get pushed to the side while he deals with those other problems. That's the way things always went when I was there. David has to be willing to delegate this to someone that can manage it on their own without his intervention. That being said, I don't know what the inner workings are with this deal. If it's simply a licensing deal and WoW is willing to pay for it to keep it going, it could be fine. However, if it's something that David needs to be hands-on with, then I don't see it having much of a future, because with David, the show always comes first, as it should. It all just depends on the level of involvement required by key people in WoW. I think it has the potential. This just requires the proper delegation and focus in order to work. That was what I felt very insightful from Mr. Dickey. And it also made me feel like everything that I felt was a problem with WoW is nearly validated. And that he being David McClain, cannot let certain things go. In Stephen Dickey's case, talking about it, it sounds like a lot of the behind the scenes. Now, of course, I never was there. I have no idea how much of that he does behind the scenes. On camera, however, he does too much. So I can only imagine what happens behind the scenes. Let's just take him as a commentator, for instance. He doesn't allow, as far as we can see, anybody else to pick up the pieces of being a general manager, a authority figure of sorts, lead commentator, lead interviewer, or whatever the case may be. He has to insert himself into that. And as long as that keeps happening, there will always be loopholes or plot holes, more specifically, that exist in WoW. That if anybody gives it any sort of thought for more than 5 seconds, you'll see it. But apparently that's not something that David McClain can see. And it is apparently something that others around him have. So I don't know. It was very interesting. It's very interesting to see why this has been what it was, or why WoW has been what it was, more importantly. But more important than following that is that it provided somewhat of a brief thread, and Raygun Gothic, friend of the show, by the way, followed that up with a question to Dickie, and he responded to that question as well. So I'll just read those two and drop it off, and we'll continue on. Raygun stated, "That's a stellar answer. I almost feel like there's a distillation of the entire product. I can tell that WoW is David's baby, but oftentimes it feels like he ends up holding it back from flourishing because of him needing to do everything. I don't claim to know any behind the scenes workings or rumors, but just based on the direction of the show, based on the direction the show has gone since getting rebooted by CBS/Viacom, there's an obvious shift in presentation almost every season." Dickie responds, "You're right. WoW will always be David's baby. Selena's as well. I wouldn't necessarily say that the culprit's holding things back. The problem is the schedule. It's honestly the main reason I left. It's impossible to gain any momentum for the product. There's no way to make a living with a schedule like that. With a year between filming and taping, of course you're going to have different directions each season. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for having an off season, but more than a few months makes it impossible to get any momentum going with characters and stories. Long story short, the show needs proper funding to keep everything going consistently. Considering the promotion is owned by a multi-millionaire, I never understood why we never had the money to establish a consistent product. I'll leave it at that. Have I not said these things? With me not working a day at WoW, have I not said these things? Taking time off. I'm not saying don't give off time, or you don't want your talent to have a break, or I'm not saying any of that. But the selling point for wrestling is now, and always has been, and probably always will be, that it is weeks of original content year round. Now that's not to say that WoW isn't providing weeks of original content. So let's just get that off the table now. They are doing that. The problem is that they do, and I have talked about this as well. When you take, the first problem is when they would do it like a television show, and we'll shoot 13 weeks and we'll take off, and then we'll just come back. The problem with that theory was you're giving yourself time for your talent to find things to do. And it's not their fault. I'm not saying there's a problem with them. They should try to find things to do, but sometimes those things will intervene with what comes up next. When WoW comes back around, it's like they're expecting their talent to just, all right, David, I'll just sit here and not do anything until WoW comes back, and I will give you my full loyalty and support until you're ready. I will sit by the phone. Just call me when you need me. Well, that's unrealistic. That is completely, especially for a year's time, that is completely unrealistic. That's what they did when they first started the show, leading right on up to Access TV. And then they fixed it after Access TV in terms of what they aired. What they didn't do was they didn't fix it in terms of how they shot it. So now, I won't say now, but what it turned to is we're going to shoot once in every 3 months. Well, once in every 3 months is a little bit better, but not by much. It still allows time for people to be gone. And we've seen the results of that. This season just passed was worse because they shot the majority of their show within a month. And what are you supposed to do with that? It's why I've already said that this show isn't meant for the public. I'm sure it's out there. And yes, it's content that's being provided. And I'm sure that McLean and Selena Majors and Jeannie Buss are all very proud of themselves. But the end result for the talent, the people within that company, it still has an open door for people to find other things to do and just get out of there. Not develop any sort of connection as to why I should be involved with the show at all. I've said a number of times that you let one of these actresses that just signed on to fill their resume or, signed on because they saw it on Backpage, get the acting job that they dreamed of. And I say this with all due respect to them. I'm not even going to pick anybody out. I'm just saying, just let one of them somehow audition for a movie, TV show, or something like that, that the thing that they really wanted to do, while be in the back seat. It'll be left behind, and then they'll just turn around and just create some other character and stick them on TV instead. It's hard. It's not just hard for a while as a promotion or the talent to get momentum. It's hard for the fans or the viewers that watch WoW to fall in line with it and want to see it grow beyond that point. It's very difficult to want to support somebody that you don't even know if they're going to be there or not. Theoretically, a good chunk of them will come back. Theoretically. But as we're looking, how many people have come through the doors of WoW and then either mysteriously vanished or went off to do other things? And that goes to the next half of this in our news, views, and updates. And I'll probably do this again later on. But looking at the current WoW roster, I haven't done this in about a year and a half, I don't think. How many people there right now, or not, I shouldn't say there right now, how many people on their roster page right now are actually there or working as a wrestler? As I look through it, this is their 2025 roster page. This is the things that they have up on their website right now. Abilene Maverick is now a manager. Adriana Gambino, now a manager. Americana is listed there, but she's been gone for months. Angelica Dante, also a manager, gone for months. Ashley Blaze, hurt / gone. BK Rhythm, Brittany Bay. Now, I don't know why Brittany Bay is somehow listed separate of Spring Break 24/7, but she is. That's another thing. It's like no rhyme or reason behind how they lay this stuff out. Chainsaw, Chella, Daisy Lane, Karakai, Terra Strike. Terra Strike of that group, gone. Foxy Fierce, gone. Fury, Genesis, Gigi Gianni, Goldie Collins, Holiday, Holly Swag, Kalaki the Island Girl, Big Rigs, and Bourbon. I don't know why they're listed collectively, but they're there. Katarina Jinx, Keita Rush, Lana Starr, manager. Lil J Boogie, gone. Magnificent Miranda Mirage, Miami Sweet Heat, not Miami Sweet Heat, the Mighty Mites. One and a half of them. Spice, gone. Celebrating her graduation for the last 4 weeks, I guess. Penelope Pink, Hella Mayfield, Princess Aussie. Catalina Speed isn't even listed on their show. On their webpage. I just wrote it in. There's the only one I can think of that, like, you know what, wasn't she supposed to be on here? But we haven't seen her in weeks anyway, so I'll just say gone. Reina Del Rey, Roxy Fierce, Samantha Smart, manager. Santana Garrett, Sophia Lopez, don't know where she is, but pretty much powerless to begin with because she's been made babyface. Don't know why they have Sibley Scoles there. She's not part of the talent roster in terms of being a wrestler, at least. But whatever. Siren. Haven't seen her in a while. I question putting Gone by her name or not. Spring Break 24/7. Again, do not know why Brittany Bay isn't listed with them, but she's not. The Environmentalists, one half of which, gone. Sprout Greens. Sylvia Sanchez, the Beast, gone. Tormenta, I'm going to make a bet and say that she's gone. Top Tier, which, by the way, is the only trios group short of not even Spring Break 24/7. They're not even listed as trios. Top Tier is the only trios group listed on their website. This goes back to tell you that trios thing doesn't work. They are at the best of a division that doesn't exist. I tried to say it from the start. It was a waste of time and a waste of money. And Jeannie Buss, I mean, she's a multimillionaire. She's about to sell the Lakers, so she probably didn't give a crap. But it still was a waste of money and time to produce those belts for nothing, just to make them happy. It'd be like saying I'm the greatest basketball player in the world when you're in college and you're beating up on the elementary school team. Means nothing. Classmaster, Tika Chamorro, Viscous, Veronica VaRoom, Valentina Diamante, which after her squash match, I don't even know why she would come back, and Xena Phoenix. Now that doesn't go into any of the tag teams, the proper listing of the tag teams, but WoW has long had this problem. This is not something new. They have long had this problem. But it's also a problem that they're not ever going to acknowledge. The reasons that Stephen Dickey is talking about why he left is every reason why when people are like, yeah, you should go. Well, first off, that wouldn't be my decision. I can't just impose my will on the WoW. And secondly, even if they did, if there's a David McClain or a Selena Majors there, I would not be able to do a thing. Me or anybody else would not be able to do a thing so long as they are there. That is a good chunk of the reason why I made the video, like the problem with WoW. David McClain and Jeannie Buss. Now I should have included Selena Majors probably right there on the front of the video, along with them too. But so long as that exists, no one's ever going to be able to fix that. They are never going to be able to fix it. They have to be willing to change something. But in order for them to be willing to change something, they have to acknowledge that something's wrong. But go back and listen to it. Bonus episode, why the wrestling media does not take WoW seriously. And they don't. The wrestling media does not now, nor I'm going to just go out on a limb and say they never will. take WoW seriously. They won't. WoW just does not have anything newsworthy to present. They don't have the talent on a pedestal that can draw anybody's attention, or that any of those sites would care to do anything with. Make a news article about them, put them on a front page splash, talk about them as if they were some sort of superstar, those type of things. They don't want to do that with them because it's pointless. WoW doesn't try to do that. WoW does one thing, that is create content. That's where it starts and that's where it stops. And I hate to be like that about it, especially on an episode that I'm reviewing, a episode of their show that I actually liked. But I thought it was important to, go through that before we get to that portion of the show. And we're going to get to that right now, in fact. So, before I go and work myself up into a point where forget this show. And, before I get to that point mentally, let's take a break here. And then we'll come back. And when we do, we will discuss that week's episode of WoW and what made it work and the things that I did like and the few things that I did. So stay tuned. We'll be back.
And now we're reading from my favorite book. August 24th, 2024. Joiya Blake pins Erin Berry to qualify for the Palmetto Classic and becomes the first ever woman to compete in the Classic. Joiya Blake 1, Erin 0. September 28th, 2024, Erin Berry no-shows his match against Joiya Blake in the Palmetto Classic. And in my book, that's a win. Joiya Blake 2, Erin Berry 0. On November 23rd, 2024, Joiya Blake pins Erin Berry in a 6-man tag. Joiya Blake 3, Erin 0. And now, on December 28th, I get to add to my favorite little book here that Joiya Blake pins Erin Berry 4 times. Joiya Blake 4, Erin 0.
Emily Taylor here, being joined right now at this time by Fire and Fury.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. I and Nova, Morgan Mercy, Nova Phoenix, Fire and Fury are the most dominant women's tag champions, women's tag team in the entire state of Texas. Hell, in the entire world.
Hold up. There's something wrong with this picture.
Yeah, why are you still here?
Get the hell out!
Bye! Now, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, Fire and Fury are the second longest reigning Mission Pro Tag Team Champions. But something's been bugging me, Nova. We haven't had a chance to defend these Mission Pro Tag Championships yet.
You know why? There's everyone that we challenged TNA talent. We challenged everyone.
Everyone.
No one has the balls to step in the ring with us. So you know what? Let's do this. Anyone, man or woman, brave enough to step in the ring with us, we'll put these on the damn line. And trust me when I say, we will beat your asses!
Scorched earth.
And we are back. So, this episode of WOW, to provide our opening slate, is episode 339, titled Rookies, Rivalries, and Royalty, air date June the 7th, the chronological number 143. And it opens up with the commentators at the booth, and they talk up the main event and Miami's Sweet Heat promo later. Main event of the show on this particular episode, of course, was Reina Del Rey with the Alliance taking on Santana Garrett. So we had a more wrestling-centric show this particular episode. The first match was Genesis, Princess Aussie. Both of them come out their respective B-rolls. The commentators played this up as the third match in their series. Now, let's just take a moment here to address one thing. This is not a series. The last match that they had that I could find took place about a year ago. The last time that I saw Genesis, Princess Aussie, and if somebody finds another one between it, because I might have overlooked it, that's possible. But the last time that I saw them in the ring with each other in a singles match in this quote alleged series was June 22nd, 2024. Almost a full year ago. So selling this as a series is absurd. I once said that in order for fans to really get involved with the talent, the product, the brand, and stuff like that, the commentators had it to be trustworthy. And that's not to say that they go out there and lie every week. But when I say that need to be trustworthy, I mean that they have to tell you things that you believe in. They have to provide you credibility. They have to get you to understand why this thing is happening, for what reason that is happening. And for the most part, you would tend to be like, okay, that makes sense. It feels like they try. And I know part of this is probably because of their taping schedule. But in all honesty, it's like, that was a year ago. That doesn't qualify as a series. This is almost a reset. So I don't know where that's coming from. But anyhow, the commentary leans towards last week's main event as this is going on. And that previous week's main event, of course, the staggering match from Mayfield and the Classmaster, which I'm sure set the wrestling world on fire. This is set largely as a fairly straightforward match and a fun one. I will give it that. My downside of the matches that took place here is that it is still kind of built around the most basic reasons that they could produce. Like, the reason that they got into this in the first place was who's the better Australian. And even if you go into their YouTube version of it, it's like Australians collide. Is that the singular issue after these two get into the ring, that they're Australian and we just want to know who's the better Australian? It's such a waste. And it does put me in the mind of everything that WOW has kind of provided for years, is that they are, I was about to say very good, but they are very consistent with giving people the surface level of what they are in terms of persona. And that's about it. They don't have any depth to them. They don't give anything beyond that. They just is surface level stuff. End of story. So if you being from Australia facing off against another Australian happens to be what's going on, well that has to be the conflict. We have to be, it's that. Not some sort of personal issue, not because you were in my way, because of something else. None of those things exist. Australian versus Australian. That's where it goes. The match in and of itself, it was fine. As much as I have gone on record to say that if it were me, I probably would not be paying for Genesis to fly in from goddamn Europe to come do a wrestling show. I'm sorry, much as I may like her or not. If I am working off of a budget, that is probably props, lodging, another talent, or something else that's going on for somebody that, and let's be honest here, I am fairly positive without seeing the ratings that Genesis does not affect this show to such a degree that would validate doing that. Again, now I say that with all due respect to her because I actually do like her as a talent. I really do. I think there's potential there. I think that she has, if this is something that she was going to pursue, I think there's something that she could do with it. But if the circumstances of her doing that on that show mean, well, we have to get her a plane ticket. We got to fly her in from Europe. We got to put her in. We got to get her lodging. We got to pay her on top of that. And who knows what other little accessories and add-ons we have to do to accommodate her. If those things are taking place along with her being there, then no, I don't see the point in having her be a part of that show. Nice talent or not. So anyhow, now that I got that out. So we got Genesis and we got Aussie, and they're going at it, and they are doing fine. And I hope Genesis can pursue professional wrestling and make something of it one day. I just don't know if this is necessarily the place for her. But it's also probably the only place that she would want to work if I were a betting man. She did a wonderful little spin wheel kick coming off of the ropes at some point. Even if it didn't fully connect, it just looked, kind of nice at that particular moment. And it may have been camera angle also. Let's give credit where credit's due. And also, Princess Aussie sold that thing great. Took the phantom kick and then bumped and rolled across the ring. Now, I say phantom kick because we never saw the impact of it. But that is also credit to the editors that did this, because when they cut the camera angle, they cut on the impact of the kick, which is, by and large, what you should do. If it didn't connect, you got to do something to try to make that thing look at least like it was competent. So, getting past that, I just like the effort. We'll put it that way. So the match in and of itself isn't important. It's not like there was something on the line. There was no personal feud or rivalry, again, other than the fact that they're both Australian, and that was brought up at some point in time. The X choke was applied by Genesis, and then Genesis onto Aussie. Aussie was able to reverse the X choke, is what they call it on their show. And then Genesis reversed it back into an X choke, which then Aussie was almost able to perform with what looked like a pinfall maneuver bouncing off of the ropes. It was almost similar to what Bret Hart did with Steve Austin at the Survivor Series many years ago. The Reversal of the $1 Million Dream. You should probably go back and watch that. She didn't do it in those terms, but the heart of it was there. We'll say that. So she tried to go for a pin, was there unable to get it. Genesis was able to kick out. A Tiger suplex a full Nelson suplex by Aussie. That was not enough, as Genesis was able to get her arms towards the ropes. They did make this look like a struggle. I really appreciated them for that. And then we get towards the finish. Looks like we're going for a suplex. Aussie is countered by Genesis when she gets a shot in the ribs. Aussie then turns that into a small package. That didn't take because Genesis then reverses it, and then Genesis gets her feet on the ropes. And the referee counts 1, 2, 3. Now, how the referee was unable to see her feet on the ropes, I cannot answer because he's right in the line of sight of it. It's not like he was turned to the side and he was only looking at the shoulders. He was basically straight away in the field of vision of her feet being on the ropes. But we'll let that go. We'll skip past it. So Genesis gets the win. Aussie then gets the microphone for a promo, and she complains about being cheated. She complains about losing towards Penelope Pink. She complains about the class master. She complains about Genesis, and then she's more or less, and I hate to say it because I like Aussie. I like Simone Williams more, but I like Aussie. She's more or less begging and whining to David McClain to do something. Now, let's stop the review of the promo. I hate that the baby faces whine and cry so much. David, do something. And that's kind of what it was. It was like, I've been trying to play fair, and it won't work. I've been cheated by Penelope Pink. I've been cheated by the class master. I've been cheated by Genesis. David, do something. All right, so let's start with that. First off, these things that she's talking about happened months ago. And I'm not even trying to defend David, but seriously, I'm like, these things happened months ago. I just brought up Genesis. That happened almost a year prior. Classmaster's probably the closest. Penelope Pink easily has to be, 6 months? Why are you talking about this now? And she's talking to David to do something about it. And this is one of those small points of the episode where I'm like, okay, God, I was enjoying it until I had to deal with that. So she's doing that, and McClain pretty much is like, well, there's nothing we can, there's not much I can do. And I wrote down, why not? And I also wrote, if I'm Nigel, my question is, who's we? I don't have any, why are you lumping me into this? Because seriously, it's like, well, there's not much we can do. Who's we? Nigel Zane has no say-so over any of this whatsoever. Why are you pulling me into your crap? And the worst part about it is, within the same episode, he flaunts his power within like 30 minutes. So I don't understand the logic of, well, there's not much I can do about it. I mean, even though he didn't say I, he said we. I don't know. What am I supposed to do? I'm powerless. Broken record time. It is every reason that I have constantly, for weeks, over and over again. And I know there are people that are on that show that agree. I know this for a fact. And now I ain't talking about just one. I'm talking about multiple. Him being the lead commentator and trying to be the general manager / matchmaker or authority figure does not work. Because the cases like this where he has to try to pretend like, I don't know. What am I supposed to do? I'm just powerless. I have no ability to do anything about this. But then in the same episode is like, oh, well, you know what you're going to do? You're going to wrestle for such and such, and these are the rules and blah, blah, blah. Weren't we just talking about this in the news, views, and updates segment? It does too much. And that was just behind the scenes. I am only going off of what we see on camera. On camera, if nothing else, he needs to let some of that go. Because you can't do all of those things. You can't. And it makes sense. You cannot. It is impossible. And every week that he does it, it only solidifies that I am right. And I ain't saying that to stroke my ego, but it's seriously, I am right. You can't do this, and it makes sense. You're only trying to appeal to people who just do not care what you say or what you do, and that they will just eat whatever it is that you serve them so long as you tell them that it's good, regardless of whether it's trash or not. Some people will wake up and be like, no, I know you said this is ice cream, but this is stuff you got out of the garbage. I'm not eating this. Some people will wake up and get to that point. The wild faithful will eat whatever it is that you serve in front of them. But they've already gone through the downslide. Before the ratings were just pulled off of the table and no one could see them anymore, I reported it myself. They got up to like 500,000 viewers. And then they started declining. They started going down. And then they start hovering about 250,000 to maybe 200,000 viewers on the average before those ratings were pulled off the table. I cannot imagine that it's doing much better. I can't imagine that. I'm sure WoW will beg to differ. Like, well, no, we have great ratings or what. I'm sure they will beg to differ. But I haven't seen that, and they haven't provided the proof, so I'm forced to believe that the ratings are crap. Anyhow, before I get off, because I know it's making it sound like I didn't actually like the episode by this complaint, but I actually enjoyed the match. Let's talk about the positives here. I enjoyed the match. I do like Genesis, regardless of whether I think that she should be flown in or not. I do like her. I think, again, I'll repeat, I think there's talent there. I think there's potential there. Whether she chooses to go forward with that, that's a whole different issue. And it probably works good that she is working with somebody that is capable of working with her like a Princess Aussie. What I didn't like is that Aussie, and she is representative of a lot of baby faces. This is not an issue singular to her. They whine and complain, and they're generic. That is the problem with the baby faces on WoW. Those three things largely. They whine, they complain, and they're generic. The only ones that get out of that particular bubble, and I've said this before, Jesse Jones and Big Rig Betty. I cannot think of another babyface that is willing to fight heels on their terms. Or tell David, hey, look, this is messed up, whatever the case. And even then when they did it, even Big Rigs and Bourbon, Dave McClain shot them down months ago. Remember that whole thing that was going on with Animal Instinct, and the issue was about their locker room, which was stupid. But that was the issue that they presented. David, why they had this, and then he was like, well, you should learn how to read a contract. The baby faces have no guts on WoW. And they are incapable of delivering something else. And even when they are, in the case of Jesse Jones and Big Rig Betty, you have someone like David McClain that is perfectly willing to shut them down. How can you get behind them? Moving on before I get myself upset. Next segment, tag team match. Animal Instinct versus Roxxy Fierce and Chantilly Chella. I walked into this match fully expecting not to like it. I'm just going to say that right now. And I fully expected not to like it based on the fact that it was Animal Instinct. I'm not a fan of Animal Instinct. I've never been a fan of Animal Instinct, even if they, at times have their moments. Because first off, I don't get the gimmick. The gimmick is just ridiculous. What about being a dog trainer makes you exactly some sort of elitist because you won a dog trophy? What about that makes her Goldie Collins? What about Katarina Jinx makes her to feel like she's some sort of cat? The only thing that I knew about these two, the moment that they were introduced to WOW's television, that I knew that they were either going to wrestle each other or they were going to be a tag team. And I got exactly what I knew they was going to do. And I shouldn't say wrestle each other. I was more like they were going to feud. The dog-cat thing. Or they were going to be paired off, and then lo and behold, here we are. They got paired off. So I will fully admit, not a fan of Animal Instinct because of those reasons. Do not get the gimmick. Not fans of their overall work. But they weren't bad here. Surprising. Fair is fair. When they do prove me wrong, and they've done it on a couple of occasions, in fairness to them, sometimes they will prove me wrong and they will show me up. They will get in there and they will have a match and they will be competent and it will be good and there'll be less of the silliness. It'll be less of being the cartoon characters that they portray. When they do that, I'm perfectly willing to admit, hey, you know what, I was wrong. Hey, they did right by this match or right by this particular event or whatever the case may be. I am perfectly willing to admit that. I just, in the case of full disclosure, am wanting to say and admit in saying that is not what I expect out of them. So they come out, and then we get our babyface team that comes out. Roxxy Fierce and Chantilly Chella. Chantilly Chella, the partner to the babyfaces and the stars. Because if somebody needs a tag team partner and they just lost somebody out of the Clear Blue, you call Chantilly Chella. I like Roxxy. My only downslide with her is that I wish that they would have allowed her to start to develop who she is as a person. Roxxy is, in my view, largely an extension of her sister Foxy. The music, the dance, the fur coat, stuff like that. It just comes off like, well, this is what Foxy did, so Roxxy must do the same. And I wish that weren't the case, especially in the recent weeks that we've seen her. Even though she's lost, she's been impressive. And she has shown powerhouse indications, powerhouse moves. She's shown that she can be strong. This is where, and I'm not even going to fault Animal Instinct for this because they are not experienced enough and probably weren't given the directions to make this happen. This is where a team like Animal Instinct doesn't help Roxxy. They didn't necessarily hurt her, but it didn't help in making Roxxy something else. And what that is like Roxxy Fierce to me needs to have somebody who is capable and willing to bounce for her, bump for her, be tossed around, and do the strong woman spots. The things to help put Roxxy over. Collins and Jinx aren't in that place. And I'm not saying this as a knock on them because they just aren't experienced enough to do it. And again, probably not told to, probably never crossed their minds. But if Roxy Fierce has a chance of anything, of getting over, of becoming a bigger deal, of becoming a bigger star, showing that she has a different mode of attack beyond what her sister did, and seeing her as potentially the powerhouse, the future powerhouse of WoW, something like that, she needs to be in there with people that could sell the idea that she's strong, that she's powerful, that she can do those things. And I don't know if Animal Instinct is the team to accommodate that. The first thing that happens in the match is that when they lock up, they being Roxy Fierce and Goldie Collins, they're the first ones, is that Collins more or less outpowers Roxy Fierce. Forces her into the ropes with the collar and elbow tie. If that were something that were produced differently, let's just say, one of the things I would have asked her is like, look, I need you to show that Roxy is strong. Do the lockup, get tossed, go back, take the bump, jump back up, determined to prove that you can still lock up with her. Try your best. She tosses you down again. Try one more time, tosses you down again. She sends you to the ropes. You come back full steam. She gives you the shoulder block. You go down. The standard strong spots. Just to put over the fact that she's a powerhouse. Now, of course, that's hindsight, but it would have been nice to have seen it. Anyhow, that's my personal preference. Not that they did anything wrong. Just my personal preference because I think that is where the money is with Roxy Fierce. Excuse me. Somewhere within this match, McClain calls Collins an award-winning pro wrestler, but not as a wrestler, but as a dog trainer. Then I wrote down, why bring it up? What difference does it make that she got an award as a dog trainer in this environment? And why is that important to this match at this point in time to bring that up in the first fucking place? It is every reason why I was like, I wish they had a heel announcer to be able to call that out. But again, because it's David McClain, probably wouldn't make air in the first place. Probably be edited out. There's a couple of things that took place here that I do like. First, let's give Animal Instinct some credit. All right? Because as much as I have given grief to Collins and Jinx, I don't fully believe that is all their fault. I do not. I think a lot of that is just what they've been told. I think a lot of that is what they have been trained to do, and they probably just do not know anything different from that, which is, very unfortunate. But in this particular match, other than what I consider babyface spot by them, they seem to be more, how can I put it? Not driven. That's not the way that I want. Less cartoony. That's probably what I'm looking for there. They seem less of an issue of being cartoony there. And I was very pleased that I didn't get that. I didn't get the goddamn back scratching post spot or her standing in the corner licking her hands and just stupid nonsense that doesn't help anything. And that no one's ever going to believe in. And the people that's watching WoW are only going to look at that and be like, these two are just ridiculous. Because that's how a lot of people will look at WoW. They're going to look at that as they're just being ridiculous. But in this match, I didn't see that. In fact, I would go the opposite and say that they kind of worked as a pretty good tag team in this environment. I wish that they were in some other location, environment, or whatever the case would be in order to really see what they could do. But one of the spots that I enjoyed was the Katarina Jinx spot where she's in the ring with Chantilly Chella. Chella's trying to get off the ropes. There's a reversal. Well, not a reversal by Jinx. Jinx basically slides underneath Chella's legs, pushes Chella towards the ropes to a waiting Collins who gives her a kick in the guts, and then Jinx gives her a kick in the guts following that. I thought that was pretty good. And not for nothing, Collins, as the heel, sold that, oh, I'm just over here stretching. Good stuff. Good stuff. And the ref was, because that's why she was over there doing the stretching thing. Like, because the ref was like, hey, what'd you do? He was like, no, I'm just stretching my legs. Good. They're the team that I would say, you know what? Why don't you try looking at some of Money Inc. spots or, something like that, where they were just a kind of a basic tag team, but the psychology of them was divine. They were very good at it, and there's a lot of stuff that you could borrow from that team now. So if you're listening to this, Katarina Jinx or Goldie Collins, go and find the team of Ted DiBiase and Mike Rotunda, a.k.a. IRS, and watch a couple of their matches, see things that you could take out of that. I will also suggest, if you want to go further back for them, just in terms of their style, the Valiant Brothers. I know it's hard for some people to want to go further and further back in terms of the wrestling library and whatnot, and like, hey, well, why does this work and what have you? But the Valiants did have some good spots. I go back and I look at some old stuff all the time now. And I do think that there's things that they have there in those matches that the team of Animal Instinct, and I don't like the name, because when I think about Animal Instinct, I think about a more predatory team, you know what I mean? Not necessarily like a violent heel team. I mean, this team would be more like Premium Pedigree or something like that rather than Animal Instinct. But anyhow, that's beside the point. So anyhow, they did a pretty good job here. I also appreciated the fact that Animal Instinct gave precedent to the reversal that would take place later on. That reversal being out of a double suplex spot, because here we have in the beginning, they do the standing suplex, and we've seen them do this before. One of the things that I've gotten on Wild about is that sometimes the audience, viewers or live audience, and I use live audience very loosely here, don't know what it is that the people are trying to do because they haven't been established as doing them. This double suplex spot, the stalling double suplex that Animal Instinct performs, had been done before, and I'm glad that they went back to it. They take Chantilly Chella up, they walk her around, they drop it down, boom. So we've seen it, and we've also seen it in the past. Good on them. Also good is that Roxxy did not wait. She's had a problem with that. She came in and she stopped the pinfall. And then we get a little to-do, four corners and what have you. The referee is like, hey, y'all didn't. I certainly wish the referees would do something else, but that's not going to happen. Now the babyface spot that they did here, again, this is in my opinion where Collins is whipping Jinx around one corner. She kicks Roxxy fierce, and then to the other corner she kicks Chantilly Chella, and then Roxxy goes out because she's hurt. That was a little bit of a babyface spot to me because it's probably more flashy than a heel team should have, in my view. So, that aside, we get to the part where I was just talking about, where they tried to do the double suplex deal again. And I like that they tried it again. It's been established. Chella then turns that into a double neck breaker, dropping both members of Animal Instinct, getting the tag over to Roxxy. And she comes in And she starts doing her deal. The shoulder block to Jinx, the shoulder blocks to Collins. She does the back suplex. Probably not as good a version of it as I've seen her do before, but it still works for me. Does a sit-out gourd buster on Collins. Jinx is able to stop it from getting the pin. Chella comes in and try to stop Jinx. Of course, the referee can't do anything to stop any of this because they're just, it's out of control. It's like, hey, guys, what are you doing? Stop. The babyfaces try to shoot the heels towards each other. They do the old do-si-do spot, run towards the babyfaces who both leap up, catch them in sunset flips, 1, 2, 3, and they're done. The babyfaces win, and I am also going to go on record to say I am happy to be wrong. I am happy to be wrong here. I thought it was a surefire bet that Animal Instinct was going to beat these two because Chantilly Chella, no matter who she tags with, is always the loser in the match. I'm sorry, Chella. Oh my gosh. I am so sorry, Chella. But she is. She's largely been just delegated as. If she gets put into a match, she's just toast. You know that she's going to just get beaten at some point and lose the match. Which is why I was like, why do people pick her as a tag team partner? She always loses. But in this case, she won. She did it. Well, not just she, they. They did it. They won. And the team that I was absolutely certain was going to go down in flames managed to get the victory here. So bravo to them. I don't know what it's going to take for me to really come around to Animal Instinct. Is probably going to take a little while. It's probably going to take me seeing them in some more competitive matches that make me feel differently about them. But as of right now, or at least for this match, I will give them a thumbs up. And yeah, they can overact a little bit there. That much is for certain, but applause for them for a good match. And it made it 2 for 2 for me at this point. Skipping past the whole promo at the end of the first match, if we just Genesis, Princess Aussie, Animal Instinct, Roxxy, Santana Garrett, it was 2 for 2 at this point. I was good. The next segment was Veronica VaRoom. She has a promo, and promo is not her shortcoming. In fact, I would say the opposite. It's probably where she's good at. Because promo in the back, she does a good job. My only issue with her is that she doesn't necessarily have the in-ring skill to back that up. I wish somebody else had control over her creative. She still, to me, feels like she is going out of her way to try to portray this. I'm violent, I'm vicious, I'm, whatever the case may be, loud, obnoxious, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She seems, in my view, to overact. Not in the promo, by the way, but just when she comes out yelling and screaming, looking at the fans and the camera and all that nonsense. And McLean tries to play her up as making the waves in the WoW. I was like, what waves did she make? Now, before we go any further into this particular match, I feel it important to point out, and it doesn't affect the show, by the way. Be clear about that. But the press releases that they have, I get the feeling that oftentimes WoW has departments that don't know what the other one's doing. That's maybe the best way I can put it. This was presented as a first-time matchup. or at least a first-time matchup on paper by way of their press release. It said Vicious, Veronica VaRoom, and Xena Phoenix meet in the squared circle for the first time ever. Both attempting to prove that they have what it takes to compete with the best of the best. That was what they put in the initial press release. But then on the show, you're hearing them talk about, well, this is the second time, they've wrestled each other before. I was like, I cannot say that the press release is going to affect the show because most of their viewership probably never read the press release. They probably never saw it. They probably never had no idea what that thing said. But at the same time, I feel like, how does this keep kind of slipping through the cracks? Because we see it in the press release. We see it in the videos that are shot. We see it on the show where things are said or done that are completely contradictory to something else that may take place. And this is one of those points. It's completely contradictory to something that took place. In this case, the match and what the commentators are talking about. So I don't know. That's just a side note. I don't get why or how they tend to do this, but they just do. VaRoom is certainly into who she is, if I have to give her that. And when she comes out, we have these fake fans out there with their generic signs that I'm sure that were handed out at some point, like, this is Veronica VaRoom, Viva VaRoom, and we love VaRoom. I'm like, really? She's the heel. Why are we pushing her? I mean, clearly this is all staged. But if we're going to stage it for anybody, why are we staging it for her? She is the heel. What are we doing for that? But that's their show. And just a little bit of a suggestion for whoever is making these signs. If you're going to make signs and you're going to hand them out to your, I use air quotes around the word audience. If you're going to make signs and hand them out to people, get different artists to do it. Get different people with a different handwriting style to do those things. So it at least kind of looks like it's somebody else that's doing them. Just my suggestion. I'm sure they won't take that, but just, maybe think that over. So anyhow, getting back to the match. We got VaRoom. She comes out and she does her thing. Xena Phoenix comes, and I guess whatever issues that she might have had with top tier have fallen by the wayside because that's not important at this point. She's moved on to, well, screw them. They just have to solve their own goddamn problems. Phoenix looks great. VaRoom looks great. I'm not going to knock either one of them for, how they present in the ring. I just think Veronica VaRoom overacts. I don't think that she has a handle on who she is as a wrestler. I mean, what is she? Probably like 3 months worth of experience, so to speak, maybe. And I think that Xena Phoenix also looks good, but she's bland. And they need to work on who they are as persons in the ring. The match begins not necessarily how I would like it. If you go back and you look at the beginning of the match, and I wrote this down, I was like, why is Veronica VaRoom standing there like, what's happening? So the bell rings and they square off against each other, and when VaRoom tries to go for the lockup, Phoenix does a roll through and goes behind her. And Veronica has to stand there like, huh, what happened? I didn't. What? She was in front of me 1 second, then she disappeared. What the fuck? I was like, I mean, it was so ridiculous. But anyway, Phoenix at that point does a great job of the roll up and the chain wrestling and going into a pinning combination. There is definitely potential there, and I'll even go so far to say there's potential for VaRoom. I mean, she needs somebody else to focus her. Even the clothesline that the swipe that she took at Phoenix, I for that the 2 seconds that she did it, I liked it because it did give me the sense of if Phoenix didn't get out of the way, she was gonna get her head taken off. It did give me the feeling of that, and I like that. If you ain't moved, then oh well. I ain't saying that I want to see Xena Phoenix or anybody else in the ring for that matter get clobbered, but but it does help suspend the disbelief when they're able to kind of work it tight. So again, there's not a lot that was going on in this particular show that would lead you to believe that there was something storyline wise or angle wise between these first couple of matches, but they were just fun wrestling matches, and this is one to add on to it, except for this spot that came next, and god damn it, you talk about things that just took you out of the moment. We get Xena Phoenix doing the side step to VaRoom. VaRoom goes out to the floor, and then she goes over to the commentator table, and she screams at Dave McClain and his complete overacting fashion. Oh my God! Like, are you kidding me? Did she terrify you that much that you just had to do that? Like, Nigel didn't look like that bothered him in the least. I mean, he just Nigel is kind of like, hey, Dave, you okay? He didn't flinch, and I love him for that. Because he shouldn't flinch. That's why I loved him for that. I was like, he should not flinch. Why would he do that? And why would Dave McClain? Oh my God! I thought she was gonna kill me, Nigel. Seriously? Overacting. Completely over. I mean, look, I understand. As a commentator or even just a non-wrestling personnel, you are supposedly secondary to the wrestlers. You are. That much is true. I get that, and I fully agree. But there is a line. And that one was just too far. I was like, come on, man. Why is all of a sudden she so terrifying to you that you have to do that? Like, whew, it is ridiculous. Anyhow, I don't even want to go on too far with that because it does make me feel like I'm just downgrading the match, and I don't want to downgrade the match. Regardless of what I thought about VaRoom and her lack of experience / overacting, her overacting has nothing on McClain's. I didn't necessarily care for her bulldog out of the corner. It seemed very stiff, rigid. Didn't feel like it was a practiced move at all. She just kind of grabbed her head and ran and sat down. It was very reminiscent of Generation 1 WoW wrestlers who didn't know what they were doing. I mean, and I say that with all due respect, but there was a lot of them that didn't. I ain't saying all of them, but there's a lot of them that did not. But the match continues on. I can give some level of heart to what was going on here, but there is timing issues. There's a little bit of a lack of instinct, we'll call it, from VaRoom. There's a point in the match where after the bulldog and after that takes place, Xena Phoenix gets like a rear waist lock and does a roll up. She kicks out of it, does VaRoom. VaRoom gets up to her feet, and then she looks like she's doesn't know what to do next for the next couple seconds. She's coming in and ready to do a forearm, but it takes a couple of seconds to really get that. It just didn't feel like it was a natural flow to me. Shoulder block, she goes for a cover. That's great. And she's yelling at the camera like, that was free. And then you get Xena Phoenix clips the leg and drops her down. So let's just get to the finish of the match. Because again, if I had to give anything, I give it the good on effort. Or as we go, here's an old school reference for some people out there. I give you the E for effort and T for nice try. And I don't even mean that in a negative sense. I think VaRoom tried very hard. And I think that in a different area, she could be pretty good. It ain't gonna happen overnight, but she needs somebody else to work with her and make her do the things that she should be doing in the ring and learn. That's what I think that she needs. And I would say the same thing for Phoenix, but for different reasons. She's sure she needs to work on what she does in the ring, but she probably needs to work on having a personality more than anything at this stage. She doesn't have that for whatever reason. She just doesn't. So, all right, back to the match. VaRoom tries to go for a camel clutch. There's a nice counter by Xena Phoenix. They were a little bit too close to the ropes, but it was a nice counter all the same where she's able to roll through and then get VaRoom in a submission. VaRoom's able to get her arms free and get to the ropes for a break. She tries to charge in with a clothesline seemingly, but then Phoenix is able to kick the arm. VaRoom goes out like, man, my arm, it hurts, and which is good. She sold it. Then Phoenix does more or less an arm breaker. That's an old Bobby Eaton move. Or at least that's the one that I remember doing it most often. A couple of arm drags, a monkey flip, and then we apply the arm bar. And she taps her out. Right there, clean in the middle of the ring, and they're done. And I thought, all right. I like this. I like that Phoenix has that. And truthfully, if I had any say-so in this show, which I don't, but if I had any say-so in this show, I would get her as far away from top tier as I possibly could to make people forget that she was ever involved in that feud. Because if she ain't winning it, she don't need to be in there. Phoenix, if they were going to try to make some new babyface or some talent to get over on top of the rest of the Wild roster, that is not going to happen so long as she's tied up in that nonsense. I would get her away from that as much and as far as I can so people can forget. And I would give her a winning streak. She would be tapping people out left and right. And I would hone in on the fact that she has a good gist of jiu-jitsu / we'll call it amateur wrestling. And get her in the ring with people that can help showcase that. Those would be my plans for Xena Phoenix at this point. Until I got her to a level where I felt comfortable with her going into the main event mix. That would be a lot of what I would be aiming for. Now again, according to the commentators, this was their second meeting, so I don't know what the press release was talking about, but whatever. It was a fun, entertaining match. Wasn't perfect. Like I said, it had its issues, had its problems in there, but it's not things that could not be overlooked. Especially considering the experience level. And the other thing that I will say, because I know trying to structure a show is not an easy thing to do, and I don't want to try to make it sound like, well, they should just do this and they should just do that. It's so simple. I don't want to come across that way because it's not that simple to structure out an hour program, much less trying to construct a full season of that. Now, I don't feel sorry for them for doing it because they put themselves in this situation. However, in this particular instance, having matches that featured some veterans. Match 1 featured Princess Aussie. And she could help Genesis. Match 2 featured Chantilly Chella. And she was able to, bravo to her, she took the heat for a lot of this, but she helped make Animal Instinct look good. Let's not knock that. She helped make Animal Instinct look good. They had to hold up their part of the bargain, but Chella helped make them look good. So when we get to a Veronica VaRoom versus Xena Phoenix, where it's two people of roughly the same experience level, yeah, not necessarily what I personally would have wanted, but you know what? They did fine. They did okay. It's not what I would have wanted for a national television spot, but you could see the potential there. If I could have anything that I could pass to Phoenix and or VaRoom, I would say VaRoom needs to tone it down a notch in terms of her coming out there yelling and screaming at the camera. Now, she's not going to listen to me because I'm sure if Dave McClain or Selena Majors told her to do it, she's going to. But I would tell her to tone it down a notch, try to find out who she is, because she's a good promo. That much is goddamn for sure. She's a good promo, and I would settle in on that. Put her, get a microphone in her hand, and let her talk. Not at the commentating booth. Get her, do not do that. Let's not have her sitting next to Dave McClain because he's just going to dumb it down. Get her in the back, have her interviewed, do what they did here, do a vignette where she's talking to the camera, something where her personality can shine, because she has a strong personality. And her personality can overcome the shortcomings that she has in the ring. Meanwhile, on the other side of that, Phoenix has to do the opposite. I think that she's probably going to be fine in the ring, but she has to find her personality. She has to find who she is as a wrestler, rather than, I'm just trying to do my best, I'm trying to make people happy, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. The normal wild babyface stick. She's got to find that. VaRoom seems to already have it. They're opposite ends of the same coin. So they need to be doing the opposite thing for the other person, if that makes sense. And if I were going to try to instill something with Phoenix, or somebody that she should potentially watch, that she may be able to borrow from, we'll say, I'll say, go, talking to you, Xena, go find ECW and find every match that you can find. I'm not even going to say match. Find every promo that you can find with Taz. I feel Xena Phoenix can be beyond good and evil. I've always liked the concept of at least one person, and more often than not, is the champion. But I always kind of like the concept of that there's one person who's a little bit beyond good and evil. Just a little bit. Not much, but just a little. To where this is about me competing and being the best that I could be and going through this roster and getting what I deserve. And if it takes me beating people that you like, oh well. If it takes me beating people, tapping out people that you don't, then great. But at the end of the day, I am here to win. Because I don't see that she has a strong personality right now. So the less said, the better. And she could project that, then I think that she might have something that she can get across. I'm not here to make friends anymore. I'm not here to solve other people's problems anymore. Top tier is behind me. But if they step in the ring with me again, I will tap each and every last one of them out. That's what I want out of Xena Phoenix. Something along those lines. But ain't in charge of creative. Next segment is a promo for Miami Sweet Heat. Being next. Segment after that is Miami Sweet Heat into the arena to have a promo. Lindsay begins the promo and at least lays out why this makes some level of sense. And I appreciate them for trying to do that. And trying to give some level of reality to the situation. As Laurie brings up their trainer, Alpha, which I thought was a nice touch. I tried to bring in hey, you don't let somebody break up your family deal and whatnot. This carries on for a little bit until we see Pink and Swag attempting to attack the Heat from behind with chairs. Miami Sweet Heat prevents this and send, I guess for lack of a better term, the heels out of the ring. And they stand on the ramp with Lana. Now, if there's ever a point in this show that I was like, okay, here's where I have to have the problem, is this segment. Had nothing to do with Miami Sweet Heat. Didn't have anything to do with Pink or Swag. At first, I don't like how it was set up. Because there's no way that they would not have seen Miami Sweet Heat running down the ramp to come to get them with chairs in their hands. They came from the ramp. Now, on camera, we didn't see that. But that's where they came from. And then, once they send him out of the ring, then we get McLean, who has to get up from the commentating booth, which is completely unnecessary. He didn't have to get up from the commentating booth to do this, but he chose to. He gets out of commentary to make a match for the titles, and he gives this, I can't even call it a stipulation. He basically says, the use of weapons will get you fined and DQ'd. And I wrote down, well, isn't that what's supposed to happen? Now, he said it in such a way like, well, this is brand new. And if you use any weapons, if you use any rocks in the socks or blah, 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 well, then you'll be fined and DQ'd. I was like, well, that's what's supposed to happen. This is so stupid. And I was enjoying the episode up to this point. Which is why I had to say, it's like, it had nothing to do with the talent. It's just the stupidity of the creative and him having to have his face out there somehow. He could have sat down in the commentating booth and said all of this. That's the first thing. Secondly, it wasn't even worth talking about because it's not a goddamn stipulation. I mean, seriously, it would be like if somebody stood up in the UFC or Bellator or something like that, and if the referee stood there like, all right, guys, we're going to have this match next week, and remember, there will be no razor blades allowed. Well, goddamn it, the razor blades are supposed to be allowed. How's that news? And that's what I felt about this. This was not something newsworthy. It was ridiculous. It was so dumb to even say it. And the only people that would have felt some kind of way about this is people who, A, did not know a thing about wrestling, or B, just got caught up in it and didn't pay attention to what he said. And I guess you can add in the wild audience that just takes what they are given. And that's what this was. This is a take what you're given moment. I did not the episode, But this segment, and not even a full segment, the end of it. I hated the end of this because it was absurd. We've never established why on earth Penelope Pink has a problem suddenly with these people that she's worked with and wrestled with for the last 3 years. That's never been explained. She just now like, oh, well, you know, I'm ready to beat you guys up or tear you apart or whatever. Now, she got on the microphone. They did have their moment, that, and they being Pink, Swag, Star, you know, up on the ramp. They did have their moment on the mic. And I didn't find that as the important part of this segment. The important part was the match being made and the absurdness and the ridiculousness of the match stipulation, and I use that very loosely, being attached to it. And trying to position that as if it was some sort of big deal. Like, in my mind, it's like, you just should have said, hey, since you're having this, we're going to have a tag team match next week. You don't need to point out the fact that weapons aren't supposed to be allowed. They're not supposed to be allowed in the first fucking place. So anyhow, we got that. And I honestly, when I saw that segment, my mind thought about the WoW audience. I was like, you know what? I really am disappointed in most of the audience right now. Because I'm sure that a chunk of them was like, yeah, great. Without giving a second thought to what was said. It was something else. The next segment, the camera catches the Alliance backstage. The camera won't leave for whatever reason. It just decides to ignore their warnings until Reina is told by Gigi Gianni to get rid of him. And then the cameraman's like, oh, okay, and then it backs up. The Muscle forces him out. Next segment, Sibley Scoles has an interview. Another one with Xena Phoenix. I am starting to believe that she might just be the personal interviewer of Xena Phoenix. He's been interviewed by her more than anybody else, apparently. I can't think of anyone else that has been there next to Sibley Scoles and being interviewed more so than Phoenix has. And I appreciate the promo, but she's still bland in context or content. She either needs someone to speak for her or she needs to speak less. It's all basically the same thing. I'm trying my best. I'm doing this for fans. I'm doing this for family, and like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the interview after that, Scoles pitches for the main event. Now, I don't have anything against Sibley Scoles. I do not. But she is another instance of someone else like, you know what, y'all probably could have saved your money there. I really hate to say that about it, but you probably could have saved your money. She seems like she's a competent young lady and good at what she does in football and on a podcast and, you know, and other endeavors. But you probably could have saved your money here. Sibley Scoles, I am, without having seen any viewership data from WoW, I am positive has not turned the tides for WoW's viewership by her being there. And I don't know who's directing her, but she almost always is looking off camera somewhere. I don't know why, but her eyes are all over the place. And why nobody's said something about that as a director, I'll never know. That would have drove me crazy by now. It's like, look at the goddamn camera. Stop looking off. I don't care what's happening behind me. Look at the camera. Anyhow, next segment. It's next week's promo for Tamina versus Sylvia Sanchez, which is kind of built around the slap that took place, a year plus ago? And now she's going to get revenge again for Sophia Lopez. Like, okay, fine. Next segment and the main event. Reina Del Rey with the Alliance, all in full force, coming out to take on Santana Garrett. And what's the first thing that happens? Gambino walks past the ring and goes right into the commentary booth like usual. Why is she a manager? I do not know for what reason at all Adriana Gambino is managing anybody. She's never at ringside. Never at ringside. Why does anyone in management or creative think that it is a good idea to have her constantly walk past the match that her wrestlers are involved in to sit next to David and yak it up for 10 or I was about to say 10 or 15 minutes, but what matches in WoW go 15 minutes? For 5 or 10 minutes. Why is this considered important? And it's like her, I'm not even going to say her. The group, the faction, the alliance. It's almost like somebody there is going out of their way to make sure that they are as unsuccessful as possible. Just trying to find a nice way to say that. I've cussed enough on it. I'll try to keep that at a minimum. But it's like somebody is just going out of their way to make them as unsuccessful as possible. And I don't know why. They can barely win anything. The manager is never there at ringside. And as we see in this particular match, even when the odds are stacked in their favor, they can't accomplish it. Reina Del Rey should not need to have 2 other people out there to assist her. Maybe 1. And that should be Gambino. I mean, hey, even Vader needed a manager once in a while, but he didn't need it every second that he was out there. Nor did he need a whole faction of people to do stuff for him. But that's what they've reduced her down into just another person until it's necessary to illustrate the fact that she's strong. It is mind-boggling and annoying that they continue to do this. Now I know all of this is already shot and they can't do anything about it now. It's already there. It's already in can, whatever. I just cannot get past the idea that it's like, all right, so when you come down to ringside, make sure you go to the commentating booth and sit next to Dave McClain and y'all will talk. For what? She didn't even pretend to be a manager. The only thing that saved this match is that it's 2 veterans. That is Santana Garrett and Reina Del Rey. That is the only thing that saved this match. That they are good at what they do. The concept around the match is crap. Oh, boy. But I expected a good one. Just because of them. BK Rutherford, Gigi Gianna are in Del Rey's corner, even though that their manager's there and, they don't do anything. Or she doesn't do anything, I should say. She didn't do anything beyond instruct from the commentating booth, yelling, Reina! McClain carries on about Gambino not seeing what he sees, the cheating. I'm like, okay, well, do something about it. I mean, because we know that he can, even though he said he couldn't in the first match, but then he got out of his commentating booth by the third to make well, I shouldn't even say third, by after the third match with Miami Sweet Heat, and then he was capable of doing something. Made a match right then and there on the spot. Princess Aussie just out of goddamn look. David, do something. Whoop, sorry, my hands are tied. Anyhow, back to the match. So, the match, it was everything that I would have expected out of them. I don't think that either person here was going to be doing anything that was so ridiculous, or how can we phrase that, was going to come off as something that could not take place in the environment that WoW has created. It was a nice match, and I just wish that if the Alliance were going to be treated as a serious thing, which they clearly are not, I wish that if they were going to be that way, that they would be utilized differently. Starting with Gambino actually being the manager that she purports herself to be. The match started with Garrett being shoved into the corner by Reina Del Rey. Del Rey forces her in, and she's able to get like a quick smack across Garrett's head. Not Gambino, sorry. Del Rey is very proud of herself. We try to lock up again, and this time is Garrett that is able to get Del Rey into the corner. She then tries a slap of her own. Now, this is after Garrett reverses the shove back into the corner by Del Rey. Garrett tries a very obvious slap to Del Rey, which Del Rey blocks. And then Garrett just brings the other hand around, which I thought, okay, that's a nice touch. And then we get this spot where Garrett is able to maneuver Del Rey out and over the top rope and onto the floor. After a reversal, she hangs herself onto the ropes. Del Rey tries to charge in. Garrett pulls the top rope down. Del Rey goes over the top, hits the floor. And then you get the obligatory spot by her partners, BK Rhythm, Gigi Gianni. Hey, you okay? You know, and Gambino, who still does not get up from the commentating booth to check. She just kind of, hey, Reina, you all right? You know, that. So the Brat Pack members, I guess, are more or less the de facto managerial spots here. And Del Rey gets herself back together, and then she gets back into the ring. We get Garrett doing the smart thing here, just waiting her turn. She's not going to go charging out to the ring where she's going to have the disadvantage. And I don't want to go through it, you know, the overall play-by-play, the second-by-second of the match, because it's in the grand scheme of things, not completely important. But one of the good spots that we had here is Del Rey maneuvering the referee to her advantage. We get a sunset flip spot where Del Rey hoists Garrett back up. Garrett breaks free. She's able to pop Del Rey's chin on the top of her head. And Del Rey is staggered. Del Rey then gets the referee, like, pulls him over, like, hey, check me out. as Garrett goes into the ropes, and then the Brat Pack get the legs of Garrett and put her down. And they help Del Rey set her opponent up. She then is able to get her on the outside, lay her over the top of the apron. She gets a drive-by hit, popping her with a big knee lift, and then now she's in control. Even forcing her up against these fake fans over here, like they have a great time watching this thing take place in front of them. And we get the I guess we'll call it the yoga stretching spot that Del Rey did. She's kind of putting her foot across Garrett's throat and then stretching. At least that's how it looked for me. I'm sure that's not what it was, but Garrett's able to fight out of that and get Del Rey back into the ring. So it was a nice, easy to follow match. I don't think that anybody's going to deny that. Not the persons in it, not the people that watched it on TV, maybe not even the people that were there. I think it was very easy to follow, pretty methodical, and because of that, easy to digest. So we will get towards the end of this, because I've already made my major complaints about this thing being largely that the Alliance is pretty much screwed, and they probably don't have enough rope to pull themselves out of the hole that they're in. I did not particularly care for the cheating spot by the Brat Pack where they just grabbed the arms and the wrist of Santana Garrett. Not that couldn't hurt. I just think that, or I should say, I wish that they had a different thing that they did to kind of, put the beating on Santana or any other babyface that they do that to, for that matter. So we get on to the end, right? What winds up happening here is that we get Santana Garrett. We've seen her already take place in the electric chair and all that good stuff. She is fighting through the odds. That is largely the narrative that is being told here. She does manage to get Del Rey down. And potentially for her, I don't even remember what she calls that thing. Like the handstand moonsault thing that she does. But before she could do that, both members of the Brat Pack get up on the apron. They distract her, so she knocks down BK Rhythm. She knocks down Gigi Gianni. It gives Del Rey enough time to roll out of the way. She gets up. Del Rey then is able to hoist her up on her shoulders. And lo and behold, she's able to do the rise and shine spot and time it better. Wouldn't you know that? Time it better than probably anybody else has done on the show thus far. Where they got to stand around and look like an idiot. So, but like, whoa, what's happening? But here, this actually did work where Del Rey is going into the ropes with Garrett at her with a rear waist lock. Because she goes to the ropes and Del Rey is able to hold on to it, she shrugs Garrett off. Garrett rolls through, then she nips back up. And as she turns right into the forearm shot from Santana Garrett. Now, you compare that to when we tried this similar spot with Garrett and Mayfield, and you'll see the difference of what I'm talking about. But after the forearm shot nails Del Rey, then we get Garrett, and she hooks her up with a super kick. Boom. Right there across the chin, and then it looks like we had a jump cut of some sort, so I have no idea what took place between that. Yeah, tell me if I'm wrong. But yeah, go back and look at that clip. It's somewhere around the 9-minute, 15-second mark, and it's just like all of a sudden it's as if Del Rey responded to something else that we never saw. She just kind of flops over. Now, yes, she did take a super kick, but it didn't seem like that was the thing that put her down right there. Like some of her match or this match seemed like it was clipped out. And so the super kick officially is the thing that finishes off. 1, 2, 3, Santana Garrett wins. And she has another one to her, I guess, win-loss column, I suppose. I wrote down, it feels like Garrett is still being positioned as a contender for the championship. I was not really overly in favor of that because they seem to not really be focused on her being the top babyface there until it just became necessary for her to be the top babyface. Overall, just get into the overall scope of the match. I mean, not the match, the episode. Overall, this episode was better than the norm. At least for me. It was better than what I would normally have out of a WoW episode. And that's largely built on the fact that this was more match than it was creative. It feels as if when they try to apply the creative to what's going on in the show, it has this issue. But here, even though they had this creative faux pas, that being David getting up and I'm going to make a match and you won't be able to do that. Other than Aussie, David, do something about this. Other than that, I cannot say that it wasn't an enjoyable episode. It was actually enjoyable. I was shocked. Now, knowing what I know going into the next one, it was somewhat disappointing that it wasn't held up, because it wasn't. It was a nice effort, but it also, whenever I've given credit for it, whenever I've said that this was a good episode or what have you, invariably, the next one almost always knocks me out of that. So I don't know. But there we go. I mean, that was the overall episode in its entirety. That was the review. What did you think? How did you enjoy the episode? Did you agree? Did you think it was the good outweighed the bad? Like I'm saying, I'm not going to tell you that there wasn't bad in it. I just think that the good outweighed that. Next episode, not so much. But here, certainly. And also, one of these days, I'm going to take the time to actually count up or tally how many times Nigel says David, or how many times David McClain says baby. Because I'm sure if you were to take a shot for every time that one of those things happened, you would be drunk. I don't want to get on Nigel for saying David's name throughout the course of the episode, but good Lord. I mean, I don't know why it is that recently it felt like I've noticed it more, but I notice it so much now. It is constant. Well, we're going here, David. Do this, David. How about that, David? I can't tell you this, David. It was like, God damn it. We know who he is. Just, come on. Dial that back just a tad. And then, of course, David McClain with his baby. We're all right, baby. So, if you choose to try that drinking game, do not say that I did not warn you for the alcohol poisoning that you will endure. Because I did see the episode that was past tense, scheduled following this. I'm not going to act like, well, I don't have any idea what took place. I know exactly what took place. But for the sake of the segment of the show, I will read this regardless, just so I can, kind of set the table for what we're going to walk into our next episode. The release that has been set out, or was set out at that time, is titled Deceitful Divas. It is going to be episode 340 of season 3. Of course, that's season 3, episode 40. It's sure to be a supercharged evening as Miami Sweet Heat, Lovely Lori, and luscious Lindsay Carlson carry out a campaign of revenge and retribution once their adoring manager Lana Starr and her deceitful divas Penelope Pink and Holly Swag, former clients of Sofia Lopez, Tormenta, and Sylvia Sanchez, seized the opportunity to finally fight it out in the ring. Tiki Chamorro and Kaliki, the Island Girl, keep their tag team status alive this week, taking on the Brat Packs, BK Rhythm and Gigi Gianni. The Hard Rockin' Fury drops into singles action against Spring Break 24/7 Sandy Shore, who is accompanied by her fellow beach besties Brittany Bay and Crystal Waters. Now again, full disclosure, seen it. So we'll just save that for the next one, other than to point out a couple of things that, again, feels like they don't have a clear line of communication between who writes this and what's happening on the show. One thing being, this Tormenta and Sylvia Sanchez seized the opportunity to finally fight it out in the ring. Didn't they do this already? And what does them being former clients of Sofia Lopez have to do with anything? I mean, really, it doesn't. Fury dropping into singles action. I mean, I've already said it. She's a rudderless boat, and she's going anywhere that the currents take her. She was hanging with Daisy Lane and Chainsaw, but now she's back in the singles action, I guess, or she was in this episode. And I do know that Crystal Waters is not there, as she probably shouldn't be. Sandy Shore at this point is a lost cause. If she was gonna do anything in a while, she's a lost cause now. Spring Break 24/7 just needs to let Sandy Shore go, revamp herself, and if she's determined to stay with WoW, that is, she needs to leave, revamp herself into some different persona, and let somebody else jump into this group with some other beachfront name and let them be the job team that they're meant to be, because she doesn't belong there. Sandy Shore needs to be out of that group. Chamorro and Kalaki fighting to keep their tag team. What tag team status? Didn't they just get together? And as far as the deceitful divas are concerned, anyway, the less said about that, the better. All right, so we will leave that as it is and come back on our following episode and do the review for that. So let us wrap this thing on up by saying, hey, if you are on YouTube, do the YouTube things, like, share, subscribe. If you're on a podcast platform, because we broadcast to greater podcast platforms everywhere, a rating would do, subscribing will do. And if somehow you stumbled across this and you don't know where to get it or how to get it, although I wouldn't know why you wouldn't, you can always go to WPNWrestling.com. It is a focal point and nexus for everything. All podcasts drop there. All videos drop there. And in fact, speaking of videos, we have a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week stream on that website for you to watch, with videos and matches and interviews and whatnot, extra stuff dating back to 2013. Some of the extra stuff go back further than that. Some matches exist from overseas, fresh out of Japan. You didn't know we had those things in there, did you? No, but we do. Even things like the LPWA, the Ladies Professional Wrestling Association. All of that and more available to you on our stream right now, WPNWrestling.com. See, WOW having is 24-hour a day fast channel. That ain't nothing new. I've been doing that, man. I've been having that. So go check that out. Give us some support. It's all appreciated. And on that note, we'll close out because we got to get to the next one by saying that this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long. And we'll see you on the next go round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.